Trish Stratus and her bounty hunting friends are tipped off by a bail jumper to the whereabouts of an even more valuable bail jumper before they are offered $1 million to turn over that bail jumper to a local mob boss. In this Canadian Comedy Award nominated film, we watched Bail Enforcers, or Bounty Hunters. Today on...
The
Groovy!
f*** is this? Hello, however you wish to self-identify, and welcome back to The
Groovy!
Is This, where we dive through DVD bins, sort through streaming apps to find the weird, the bizarre, and the unloved. I'm your host, Kaz Lesgard, and joining me always is my co-host, Jameson Rafter.
You bet your ass it's Jameson Rafter. I wanted to give like a little bit more of an introduction than I normally do, and then that's what you got. This is the best I came up with.
Is that your new catchphrase?
You bet your sweet
Groovy!
Jameson.
You bet your ass it's Jameson. I'd be happy if every episode we bet something new. You know, this episode is I'm betting my ass, but you know what? Keep me on the edge of my seat, Jameson. Keep me surprised. Keep me excited about what's the new thing that you're gonna bet, like, every week.
Like a new, like a different body part, or just like something different in my apartment that I could live without, and I'm cool to wager it.
At the start of every episode, you bet something new, and by the end of it, we wager whether or not that becomes my property or not. I like it. Cool. So I guess my ass is on the line. I don't really know how that works. Anyway.
Knowing my record of this, like, I'm gonna agree to this, and then I'm gonna forget about doing that by the next episode. I don't keep track of this shit. That's your job.
I won't let you forget my ass is on the line. I use that on a day-to-day basis.
So, welcome back to this year's third and final
WrestleMania! Yes, and welcome to today's movie, which is 2011's Bail Enforcers, also known in some circles as Bounty Hunters, but we're gonna call it Bail Enforcers because that's just a slightly less generic name. Helps it stand out a little bit.
They're both really stupid and disappointing titles. Very generic, I'd say.
You're gonna get right what you paid for. Gives you exactly what it says on the can. Yes, so the reason...
Movie from a can, excellent.
Bail Enforcers, now available in your local supermarket. Yeah, so the reason we decided to end off the second annual WrestleMania with Bail Enforcers is because we realized something a little unusual, sort of like pulling the curtain back on how we decide on what movies to watch on this show. There really is no set method of us choosing stuff. We often just go on the internet, we bum around, we look around for stuff, and...
this looks stupid. This looks fun.
Yeah. We see what we can find is stupid. Bail Enforcers on the short list of movies that star wrestlers in them, but after we recorded the last two episodes and we said, hey, maybe we should do this one, we came to sort of an unusual realization. Every movie that we have done thus far in this go-around of WrestleMania happens to be a movie with a female protagonist, which was not something that we planned ahead of time, but
by sheer coincidence that kind of happened. We're gonna get like some sort of humanitarian award from this year's WrestleMania.
Let's just stop the podcast right now and let's just congratulate ourselves for how progressive we are, and just give a good pat on the back for us being such super allies.
You're welcome, ladies.
This is the content the female audience of this show has been clamoring.
Imagine us like going up to the podium and like, we did it, and just like the glares and the half-hearted applause.
Did it? Misogyny is over. Give us all the podcasting awards. Yes, so welcome back to what we are now calling the Feminist WrestleMania. But yes, because the wrestler du jour, the star of 2011's Bail Enforcers is Trish Stratus, highlighting the lovely ladies of wrestling, or a lovely lady of wrestling on the show today, because we're so woke. This is the woke wrestling podcast, WWP.
It's about downtown. It's such a shame that it took until year 2 of our podcast to get around to doing this. But yeah, like we just decided that, well, not only that, like, it just so happens that all the movies that we watch were starring women. We actually haven't done a movie that is prominently starring a wrestler this go around. They were sort of like tertiary characters. Yeah. Like, by no real, like, fault of our own. It's just that, like, Chasing Molly and No Contest looked really fun to watch. But they weren't really starring the wrestlers. So, like we said, here's what we gotta do. Let's kill two birds with one stone here. We gotta get a leading woman who's... And she's gotta be this, like, the actual star of the movie.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, we did have a choice between one of two Trish Stratus movies, because she's only, in fact, been in two films. The other one was an ensemble movie, the name of which escapes me right now, but it was her, and I think Danny Glover was in it, and Dominic Purcell, and it looked equally as terrible as Bail Enforcers. No, ultimately we decided to go with this one because she was undeniably the main character of this movie, and it looked like this other one, she was just playing like a henchwoman or something. So we'll put that on the back burner. I am curious to see how Trish Stratus and Danny Glover act together, but, maybe we'll save that for next year.
Yeah, and, just knowing, our track record with these kind of movies, having her as, the lead and sort of, the main star of the movie doesn't really bode well for this movie.
Not at all. I did watch a trailer earlier, and it's rather fitting that this is gonna be the last movie of this year's WrestleMania, because I'm getting some strong wrong side of town vibes off of this movie based on the trailer that I watched earlier, and that does not bode well whatsoever. But, so, Jameson, me knowing very little about wrestling in general, can you tell me anything about Trish Stratus and her career? And failing that, is there anything you had left over that you wanted to discuss about this year's quarantined WrestleMania? Anything other weird shit that might have happened during that?
Sure. So to be, perfectly honest, even though, I am between the two of us, the authority on wrestling in this,
by default, yeah.
As a part of, and not the actual authority in the WWE storylines. I don't know very much about wrestling or wrestlers. I kind of lean heavily on my friends like Scott to know that stuff. But what I do know about Trish Stratus is that of all the diva wrestlers, and that's what the female wrestlers in the WWE company are unfortunately referred to as, she is really prolific in that. I think she was, at least from the Attitude Era onwards, she was the Rock of the diva stable of wrestlers. Yeah. She's pretty universally well known. I think she started out as a manager or as a heel for a tag team group. I think they were called TNA, and she was not the TNA. Yeah. TNA were somebody else.
It was Test and another person with an N name. It was the names of the actual wrestlers, but then it became about tits and ass.
Yeah, but then she went on to be a wrestler herself, and quite a popular wrestler in her own. And she's been an inspiration to a lot of women that have come through the company since she had a retirement. She's done pretty much everything, won every championship because they all change hands anyways. She was in a weird romance storyline with Vince McMahon for a little bit.
Oh, that must have been fun. That must have been a mutual decision that they came to on their own, and not something she was forced into doing.
Had nothing to do with him being the boss. And very recently, the last time I saw her in the match was when she took part of the very first ever Women's Royal Rumble, which is where 50 wrestlers take a turn to run into the ring, and she was the last entry, the big oh my god, Trish Stratus is back, even though Scott and I both called I bet the last one's gonna be Trish Stratus. There's no one bigger that they could bring back for that. And that's really all I know about Trish Stratus. She's Canadian, so she's alright in my books.
Yeah. We're cornering that market. I know for me, anyway, Trish Stratus sticks out amongst the other WWE divas just by virtue of having two names, because the majority of them are just single named entities like Lita or Paige, or China, if you want to go back even further than that. Trish Stratus always struck out as all for some reason, this woman is cool enough that she actually gets a last name.
That checks out, I suppose. That's good enough.
Because for me, the only other thing I remember Trish Stratus from was a brief period where I was I don't want to say addicted to, but semi-intrigued by a TV show called Armed and Famous. Do you remember that?
No. Describe it to me, please.
That was a reality TV show where they took 5 celebrities, including Trish Stratus, Eric Estrada, LaToya Jackson, Jack Osborne, and Wee Man from Jackass, and they made them honorary deputies. And then they ran around and they went in on drug busts and stuff while the cameras were running.
I'm sure they did. What a motley crew. What a fucking Justice League that must have been. I can just imagine that, when they get to, doing, a drug bust and they gotta break a door down, they just put Wee Man in, a big slingshot and hurl him out a door.
Yeah, don't send, the actual wrestler in to break down the door. No, send in the Jackass guy. But tell me more about this last WrestleMania that happened. What, you mentioned on the last episode you had, a top moment that we didn't get to. So, tell me more about that.
Alright, my top moment was, and, just to reiterate, I don't follow wrestling throughout the year. I just kind of, watch it, at WrestleMania. So, whenever I do watch it, there's, a whole slew of new wrestlers that I've never seen before. And one of them was this big fat guy named Otis, whose gimmick is that, he's food obsessed and he's kind of stupid. and he's a bit of a slob, and that's just like his character.
Man after my own heart.
Yeah, exactly. And his storyline involved like trying to ask one of the divas out, a woman named Mandy Rose. And I may as well just like recap the Wikipedia article I have on this. But like to prepare for his date, he was doing sit-ups with like a guy holding a ham to like lure him up and everything. And yeah, he's just like this sweaty, greasy, fat guy. And he shows up to like their date in like an ill-fitting tux with a bow tie that's like wrapped around his neck because can't fit in a suit jacket. And let me just like recap this wonderful story that went on here.
All right, I'm intrigued and slightly nervous.
Otis entered into a romantic storyline with wrestler Mandy Rose on the February 14th, 2020 episode of SmackDown. Otis had a date with Rose, but Dolph Ziggler appeared in Otis's place during the date. The storyline then evolved into a love triangle involving a feud between Otis and Ziggler over Mandy Rose. The episode of SmackDown was revealed that Sonya Deville was working with Ziggler to keep Otis away from Rose. But at WrestleMania 36, Otis defeated Ziggler with the help of Mandy, who kissed him after the match. I don't know, I loved it. It was in the middle of this awful quarantined offshoot episode of WrestleMania. Like there was a budding love story to it. And so it was very hopeful and inspirational that even through all this, like love finds a way between these star-crossed lovers.
You think they're gonna make it? No. You think they're gonna stay together? They're gonna be the next power couple? They're gonna be the next Triple H and Stephanie?
I don't think so. I mean, like, anything's possible because it's all fucking fake.
Because it's all bullshit anyway.
I mean, I'm sure, like, I looked it up and, like, apparently it was her idea to have a romance storyline with this big fat guy. So, I don't know, I think it's fucking hilarious.
On the one hand, it's nice that WWE is including romance storylines featuring untraditional views of what, like, the person is supposed to look like. It's nice that there's a heavy-set man who's finding love with a beautiful woman. It's a shame that they made him fucking work out for ham, fucking dangling like a fucking chicken leg while he's fucking running on like a treadmill. Because we can't fat people deserve love too, but we need to remind everyone how gross they are first.
That leads to some awesome sight gags too, where like she'll lean in for a hug and then she they separate and the dress that she's wearing is just covered in sweat and stain. I mean, that's just good for some belly laughs. And I don't know, like between that and like WrestleMania 3, it just like shows that, there are no bad ideas when it comes to the world of wrestling.
There's no bad ideas when all of them are bad. Yeah. When you start with that as your foundation, you can't fail.
Absolutely not. And this, even with, choosing to go through with WrestleMania this year, it's not the fucking worst idea Vince McMahon has ever had.
And that doesn't seem like any sort of setup whatsoever. Hey, here's a question that just naturally popped into my head. What is the worst idea Vince McMahon has ever had?
Oh, thank you for asking, Cass.
Completely unprompted.
To be honest, we needed something to talk about, and I've actually been dying to bring this up for a little while because, fucking Vince McMahon is a real crazy person. I mean, he's a fucking business genius for managing this whole thing, but he is who I automatically think of when I think of insane billionaires. Imagine the chairman of any other sports league putting himself into the game and being a guy who always wins and who's coked out of his mind and super jacked. He is legit insane. Unless I'm talking about a guy who fucking wrestled God for a storyline too.
Why aren't we talking about that? Wait, what?
Because it's not that funny. It was just a spotlight that was meant to be God, the ray of God, the majesty of him into the ring, and Vince wrestled nothing. He wrestled a spotlight.
What? What are you actually saying right now? It sounds like the most insane thing. I would love nothing more but to talk about just that, but the recording, we're already at 18 minutes here, Jameson. I can't fucking print it up, and WrestleMania's gonna be over for another year, so I won't even be able to ask you about that now.
Allow me to introduce to you one of Shawn Michaels, or actually the only tag team partner Shawn Michaels is gonna have here tonight. He is let's see how... He has many names. Let's try. He's the Holy Roller. He's the hipster from heaven. He's the man upstairs. From the kingdom of heaven, please welcome God. Oh, right there. Hold it. Stop it. Stop the music. Oh, stop it. Listen, God, we're not doing things your way tonight. We're doing things my way. This is not your house. This is mine. On second thought, you know what, God? Bring it. Bring it. Whatever you've got. I don't care what it is. Because tonight, there's no disqualification. There's no count out. This match is no holds barred. Since when? the hell that happened? Praise be the name of Vincent Terry McMahon.
And that's not even the thing that I wanted to talk about, but we'll save it for next year.
You don't want to, you don't think you can sum it up in like a minute and a half?
Oh.
We need to get on with the actual movie.
Okay, I can sum it up in a minute, but I can't go into like the full video. If you ever need some downtime and if you ever need a laugh, just search for something called Tuesday Night Titans. And what that was, Vince McMahon's talk show.
Hi everyone, Kaz here with a quick editorial. I would have loved nothing more than to play you the intro to Tuesday Night Titans in all of its cheesy 80s goodness, but in every single clip YouTube has, the music is about 5 times louder than the announcer Lord Alfred Hayes, so it ends up sounding like this.
It's changing the Vince McMahon. This evening is brought to you in part by Costco, the oil
I don't know if that's how it sounds when uploaded to YouTube, or if the sound was always that uneven, but I hope it's the latter, because that is hilarious.
Hello everyone and welcome to TNT. If you would please welcome our very first guest, Bobby the Brain Heenan, along with strongman Ken Patera.
He imagined himself as Johnny Carson, where all of his guests were his wrestlers, they were all in character, but none of it was rehearsed.
Okay, great. Because if there's one thing we know about wrestlers, it's that they are brilliant improvisers.
And they had sketches.
Oh, that sounds great.
It was in the 80s, where like there were not exactly like the most progressive. So yeah, if you ever need like a laugh, the sets were cheap. You can hear the crew members talking like behind the cameras. Like this was during like the golden era of wrestling, where like the stock characters still like Rowdy Roddy Piper and Macho Man, and you can hear like crewmen like fucking around in the back, and like, you know, someone dropping something off camera, and Vince like looks over with like when the camera cuts, I'm gonna like yell the shit out of you, like, how dare you interrupt that take? Like, it's fucking hilarious because he is just he is teetering on the edge of insanity, and like just a tirade, and someone's gonna lose their job at the end of every episode. It's fucking amazing.
Several cameramen are buried underneath the WrestleMania ring. All right, cool. All right, well, yeah, that there's Jameson with your WrestleMania updates. Vince McMahon, deplorable human being, treats his wrestlers like garbage. Moving on. All right, so bail enforcers. All right, so Wikipedia tells me that the plot of bail enforcers is a group of people go around catching people who have skipped out on paying bail or have a bounty on their heads. Which is, yes, that's the definition of what bounty hunters do. That is the first sentence of this.
That's not a recap of the synopsis. That's just like someone took the actual description of Wikipedia and copy and pasted on top of the movie premise.
One night, the group, consisting of Jules, Chase, and Ridley, catches an informant with a $100,000 bounty on their head. A mobster, who wants this man more, offers the group $1 million to turn the informant over to him. And that's where the synopsis stops. So, really not telling us anything about this here. I have several questions. I don't know about you, Jameson, but
my first question is that it?
Yeah, that's apparently the plot of the movie. He offers them $1 million. They say yes. Movie over. Because that really doesn't tell us anything. If I was one of those 3 bounty hunters, and a dude had a price of $100,000 on his head, but then someone else, a criminal albeit, but someone else comes over and says, I'll pay you $1 million for him, I'm fucking taking the $1 million. I don't have morals or ethics. I'm a bail enforcer, goddammit. I'm a bail hunter. I'm a bounty enforcer.
Which, as Wikipedia tells us, is a person or persons who go at.
Yeah. So God, there's so little to say about this movie. It is directed by Patrick McBrearty, who Wikipedia tells me is an Irish Gaelic footballer who plays for Kilcharta and the Donegal football team.
I don't think this is the same guy who directed the movie.
That is the Wikipedia page that is linked to the director's name when you look up bail enforcers on Wikipedia. It's also entirely possible that it may be a different Patrick McBrearty, who is a writer and director of movies. Could possibly be that guy. I'm gonna go with...
Never know. We've had a bit of a bad track record with this so far.
I'm gonna go with the footballer. I'm gonna say that he's the footballer. But just in case, this other guy, he's a director of horror movies called Psycho Ward and The Door, and he is the screenwriter of, and this is true, I love this, A Very Country Christmas, Christmas Catch, From Friend to Fiancé, Mistletoe Magic, and my personal favorite, A Very Corgi Christmas.
Corky Christmas?
A Very Corgi Christmas.
Oh, Corgi Christmas. Okay.
Corgi, like the dog. What did you think, guys? Like Corky?
Yeah, I thought you said corky, like old-fashioned and corny. Oh, well
So, as a director for hire, he does horror movies and action schlock like Bale Enforcers. But when he gets behind the laptop and he lets his creative juices flowing, it's all Hallmark Christmas bullshit.
Aw.
That's where the money is, apparently. The movie was written by Rhys Evenshen, who is the writer of films such as Dead Genesis, Defective, and the upcoming For the Sake of Vicious.
For the Sake of Vicious.
For the Sake of Vicious. For the Sake of Vicious, Jameson.
Like Sid Vicious?
I don't know.
What a shitty title. So the guy who wrote Bale Enforcers also wrote For the Sake of Vicious?
Yeah.
God, man.
Now, you might not think that Bale Enforcers might be the type of movie that is nominated for any sort of award whatsoever, but you would actually be wrong, because Bale Enforcers, I don't know why I like saying the name of this title with like an extra emphasis on Bale Enforcers. I don't know, it's just fun to...
Fits right in with WrestleMania!
Yeah, I gotta scream like that, yeah.
Featuring Bale Enforcers!
But Bale Enforcers was nominated for the Canadian Comedy Award for Multimedia / Best Male Performance in a Feature. It was nominated for the actor Boomer Phillips.
Boomer Phillips. What a name. Now, that's a name I like.
That's a name, yeah. He plays the role of Chase in this. He lost that award to Gavin Crawford for a movie called French Immersion. And looking into the Canadian Comedy Awards, the award for Multimedia / Best Male Performance in a Feature does not even exist anymore. So, lofty.
Like a one-time nominee. Now, do you think that was intentional? Do you think like they submitted that? From everything, this looks like an action movie. And now they're submitting it for comedy awards?
I'm hoping this movie is actually funny now, because that sort of sets that up that it might be. Or there just might have been a very limited pool of films to draw from.
I think what would happen was like they had this in screenings and they're like, oh, this is going to totally launch us. Like we're going to be like, this is going to be like the Canadian Rambo or whatever, just like the quintessential action movie. And a lot of people were like rolling in the aisles and like just like busting guts, and they're like, oh shit, we were always in on the joke. This was always meant to be a comedy.
Possibly. Well, an award that it tried to win or even be nominated for but failed miserably, this was an official selection for Action Fest 2011, which is an action film festival that was started by Aaron Norris, who is Chuck Norris's brother and director for several of his movies. Of course, Lost, the big winner that year was, of course, Machete, presumably a much better action movie.
I can appreciate that because it's like a lower budget action movie that found like a lot of success, so I'm okay with that. Plus, it's fucking dope.
I mean, it's still like a big Hollywood movie that had celebrities that came directly to theaters, but being a Robert Rodriguez movie, yeah, it still probably had the budget of Bale Enforcers, knowing him.
He's actually pretty sweet. I watched his guerrilla filmmaking course that came with like the DVD of El Mariachi. That's a good watch for budding filmmakers now, even though I'm sure like now that's taught in classes. Back in the 90s, that was a good...
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Watch his 10-minute cooking videos too. I legitimately learned some shit from him.
He's got cooking videos?
He's got 10-minute filmmaking videos, and he has 10-minute cooking videos as well too.
What's with us finding all these like artists that have like cooking shows? It's him and Coolio.
Everyone has a side hustle. Yeah, and then that's it. I can't really say much about the cast, because outside of Trish Stratus, there's really not much to say.
You know, I'm fine with that. Maybe this will be a short movie.
That might be. It is a short movie. It's an hour and a half. But yeah, so Trish Stratus, there's the trio of bounty hunters I mentioned in that brilliant synopsis. So yeah, Trish Stratus plays Jules. Boomer Phillips plays Chase. He's a good Canadian boy. He's appeared on Letterkenny as the character Boomtown.
Boomtown. I hate fraidy cats like I love my wife. Intensely. I love her so much.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, have you seen that? Do you know who I'm talking about?
I mean, like I must have seen him. I don't remember every fucking episode of Letterkenny because it all goes by so fast. But yeah, I probably would have seen him.
Boomtown. Pantherophobia for your mother-in-law? Fuck that. I love my mother-in-law like I love my wife. I'm a good man.
And he's also appeared in the hockey comedy Goon, Last of the Enforcers.
Oh yeah, I've seen that too.
Yep, so a good old Canadian boy, yep.
Good Canadian kid.
Boomtown. I'm a good man.
The third bounty hunter I have even less to say about. Playing Ridley, we have an actor named Frank J. Zupanchik. The only relative thing of note that I can point out is that he played the role of Army 1-star general in the movie Suicide Squad. The only film of note is a colossal piece of garbage. So,
My condolences, buddy.
let's bite the bullet and let's go watch fucking Bounty Bail Enforcer Hunter.
Enforcer bailers.
Hunter Bail bounty enforcing.
Like a rose by any other name. It's gonna smell just...
We'll see. We'll see you after the break, everybody.
More bail enforcers after that. Holy shit, that was a 30-minute intro! Holy fuck.
And we're back.
Oh man.
We're back. We're back from our bounty hunting and enforcement agency bailing bounties.
Kaz, I don't want to do the fuck is this anymore.
Welcome to the final episode of...
This fucking hurt.
Is this finally the movie that broke Jameson?
Oh my god. What a piece of shit that movie was.
Right off the bat, I've got two observations. First observation. This movie kind of gives us what I'm going to call sort of the reverse no contest situation, in the sense that that movie had a female protagonist that for some bullshit reason they didn't put on the poster or the marketing for the movie. Whereas this movie, the poster for this movie is just Trish Stratus, and you get the feeling that they're sort of selling it as, here's like this kick-ass lady, and she's a bounty hunter, and she's gonna like take everyone down. Trish Stratus, not in this movie for like a considerable amount of time.
It fooled us. Well, we thought we were...
Disappears for like 20 minutes.
We thought we were being super progressive. You know, here's here's a very feminist, positive movie.
Okay, we knew we weren't being progressive. For anyone listening to this who like is still not getting the joke. No, we knew this was going to be cheap, exploitive, degrading trash. But at the very least, we thought we were going to watch a movie where Trish Stratus is the lead character. Not really the case.
Yeah, I nixed that other suggestion because, like, let's have the one that's actually starring the wrestler. And what the fuck? They bamboozled us.
Would you say that there was a main character of this movie?
Ripley, whatever the fuck his name is. The one that had, like, the one who called all the shots and, like, I guess led the bounty hunters. He, I suppose, the closest we had to the driving force of, like, every decision that the bounty hunters made, even though I don't fucking get it.
No, there is one thing that they could have done in this movie that would have undeniably made Trish Stratus the protagonist of this film. I'll get to it once we go into the plot a little bit more. But if they had included one scene, we as an audience would have been able to accept her as the main character. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and say this movie has no main character. There's no protagonist that we're following. There's no protagonist, and there's about 8 antagonists. Anyway, the second observation that I have about this movie is that I guess I just didn't realize that things were that bad for Canadian comedy in general. That, like, I didn't think Canadian comedy was in that much trouble. But after
that boomer guy, like, kind of drew my eye a little bit because, like, okay, let's see what kind of zingers this guy comes up with. And as I kind of worried, and I guess someone should have expected, the majority of his lines were so eye-rollingly cheesy and stupid and just not great. There's 2 scenes where he's clearly just riffing and improvising, and it kind of veers towards being kind of funny, but that's it. Like the maybe 10 seconds of improv are like what they stitched together into his highlight reel for the nomination. Otherwise, he's just an irritating character.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what that thought process was. I bet you anything they needed a 5th name to fill out the nomination form that year or whatever, and someone who went to Chuck Norris's brother's action film festival remembered that there's this movie that technically is Canadian and has this one guy that sort of tells a joke at one point, so they looked it up and they put his name on the list, because he's not funny. He doesn't say anything funny.
I know, and the other token of that was, like, I thought by this being nominated for comedy, it would have been something like Laser Mission, which is, like, really unintentionally funny, but it's not even that. There's not a laugh to be had at anyone's expense. It's really fucking stupid and annoying.
I laughed a handful of times during this, but it was always during action scenes, because the action. That is specifically when you're not supposed to laugh in an action movie. Holy shit, the action scenes in this movie are just done so fucking badly. That's what made me laugh more than anything. The unexpected moments that pop up in this thing. Like, characters are like running around and then all of a sudden Trish Stratus will just kick a random dude. It's all like, who the fuck was that guy? Why did that guy get kicked?
Her main move seems to be running up behind someone and then jumping on their back and then like seeing if she can like wiggle her way to the front so she can do like a leg lock and flip him to the ground.
I wrote it down. The third time she did it, I wrote it down. Her signature move seems to be the koala because she jumps onto someone and she wraps her arms and their legs around them, and then she just tries to force them to the ground through the sheer weight of her body alone. It's just a lot of grappling, a lot of holding on, and a lot of
wrestling.
Yeah, not even punching. Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, no, it is wrestling. She is doing wrestling moves. Obviously, that makes sense, but it looks fucking weird.
And then outside of that, like, the gunfights are really lame. The chase sequences are really lame.
Everything's lame.
Everything was lame. That's
fucking garbage. It's not the worst movie.
It's up there, though.
It is. No, yeah, it's up there with the worst movies we've ever done on this show. I wouldn't say it's the worst, but yeah, no, it definitely cracks at the very least the top 5. Possibly the top 3. But anyway, yeah, so let's try and recap this fucking monster. Good lord. So we open with what seems to be flat out elevator music over the opening credits.
Yeah, where Trish Stratus is narrating like, well, this is my life. I'm a bounty hunter. So that's my partner on the ground.
Well, isn't this just peachy? Another fine day in the life of being a bounty hunter, I guess. Let's see, what do we got here? A mob bus? Check. Gun pointed at my head? Check. We're in an abandoned warehouse. Perfect. And oh yeah, I'm wearing a schoolgirl uniform. So it must be Friday. Is it Friday already?
It's that classic, you're probably wondering how I got into this situation. Let me tell you all about it. And we open and Trish Stratus already has a gun to her head, which is a position she's going to find herself in
quite a bit.
Many times throughout this.
Yeah, she's incapacitated a lot in this movie.
Yeah, it opens with this big sort of like Mexican standoff. All of the characters are pointing guns at each other. Trish is in a schoolgirl outfit. Presumably there'll be some sort of funny story surrounding how she got in that outfit. You'd be wrong.
How she got into it.
If in this early moments of this movie, you are wondering to yourself, I wonder if there's a funny or clever way that we're gonna find out that these characters got in this situation. Just go ahead and put that out of your mind right now. Nothing remotely clever or unique happens throughout this movie. It's exactly the type of movie you think that it's going to be.
So we flash back to 10 hours earlier, where we are introduced to the Bail Enforcement Agency, which is the company run by Ridley, and his 2 employees are Trish Stratus, who plays Jules, and the boomer guy who plays Chase. And they're bail enforcers. They're bounty hunters.
Let's be perfectly honest. As soon as you found out that his name was Boomer Phillips, we're not going to be calling him anything else other than Boomer.
Nah, he's Boomer to me now. Yeah, he's Boomer.
He's Boomtown.
But yeah, like, they formed this bail enforcement agency, which I don't think is a real agency. It seems like a private practice. Because I don't know why they call themselves agency, but all their gear is like labeled with the BEA. They got a little coat of arms on their van, but it's not a real agency.
Isn't it? I don't know how bounty hunters work. Are they not certified? Do they not have...
I don't know for sure or not, but the reason I clued in that I figured that they're not an agency is they don't answer to anybody. There's no like sort of headquarters for the agency.
Well, that we see in the movie. Yeah, I mean, like, if the movie had established that they have a base of operations or a superior officer, then we might understand that. The movie continually brings up that, we're these criminals, these bail jumpers that we've captured here, we're gonna take them back to lockup. They never get back to lockup. They keep saying that they're going to go back to lockup, but they never actually make it to that building. I'm fairly certain that's because they just did not have that location available to film at.
Probably not.
Several things you think they might have shown in this movie that just don't show up. But yeah, I guess we can sort of ascertain that this is a private business that Frank runs, because, I don't know, Trish Stratus gives us some backstory, but I'll just be perfectly honest, I wasn't really paying attention to the intricate backstories of the characters here.
There's not a lot. I mean, there is a scene where, like, they do go into the backstories of these, and what do they say? Like, Boomer was, like, a guy who wanted to be a cop, but then he had an injury playing hockey, and now the police force won't take him, even though he seems to be okay in a fight. Ridley was like a good man who like runs these like nighttime programs so the kids like won't be on the streets after dark.
Was he?
Yeah, they mentioned that.
God, would have been nice if we had a scene to fucking show that. Cause I didn't know that about.
But like, no, that's just like offhanded mention to like by one of the mafia guys to the mafioso. And then when they get to Trish Stratus, they just like the only backstory we're given of her is don't let her good looks fool you.
The girl. Don't let her good looks fool you. She can kick some serious ass. I've seen it myself. Tell me about this riddle.
That's it.
Well, here's the remarkable thing about Trish's character is that she is given a backstory, but this movie is so short. Like, this is barely a movie. It doesn't even come in under an hour and a half, and...
Yeah, what did you say that like the runtime was like an hour and a half, and like maybe the last 20 minutes were the credits?
No, 15 minutes of that runtime are a complete lie. There's no movie there, and there are so many connective scenes that we needed to make us just care about anyone. Like, midway through this movie, it just dawned on me, I don't care about any of these fucking people. I don't want them to succeed. I don't want them to fail. I don't want to know the outcome of what's going to happen to anything. And that is...
There's like zero stakes. So yeah, like they run this bounty hunter business. We see them tackle a guy, like a bail jumper, at the gym, which is the first fight scene, which is really stupid.
Which is Trish and Boomer trying to take down this big beefcake guy. Boomer gets laid out pretty early on, so it's just Trish versus the big muscle guy, while Ridley is like distracting the counter girl. If this was like a better written movie, he'd be saying something clever and charming that might make us believe that this woman is ignoring an obvious assault that is happening right next to her.
That we can hear in the background, and like, oh, I don't hear anything. Even though, like, that woman was, like, really tiny. Like, I don't think she could have stopped a fight like that. Like, they wouldn't listen to her if she said, like, hey, take it outside, you guys.
No, but, I mean, like, she could have called the authorities, but this is my other question about how bounty hunters work. Are they allowed to assault people? Because they're not police officers, so are they, like, allowed to go into buildings and break tables and shoot guns? Are they allowed to shoot guns?
I don't think so. I think they have like a firearms license to do something like that in like the name of serving the courts.
Yeah.
I guess from what I know from just TV and movies is cops don't approve of bounty hunters. A, like they're doing their job for them. B, they're not following regulation. People could get hurt or whatever. So like they're not exactly smiled upon in the eyes of...
Like I know how real bounty hunting is supposed to go down. I watched enough seasons of Dog to know that it's mostly mundane stuff, you know, just like kind of like going around finding the person. Maybe you chase them a little bit, but eventually, you know, you just end up tackling them to the ground and just tell them that they need Jesus. Not once did anybody in this movie tell anyone that they needed to find Jesus. If Dog the Bounty Hunter is giving me anything to go off of, that's a huge part about being a bounty hunter, is bringing people back to God. And that doesn't happen once in this movie. Very disappointed. C-. Anyway, moving on. So I also wanted to point out in this first fight scene where Trish is trying to take down the big beefcake, you can clearly see the wire that's attached to her. Did you notice that? I noticed that in a couple shots.
I did notice that. I noticed that, and I also noticed there's a part where, so the reason that Boomer gets, like, he's not involved in this fight scene is that he gets a weight dropped on his foot early on in the fight, and so now, like, ow, my toes! But, there's a part where, like, he's still on camera, so, like, he's, like, rubbing his foot watching the fight, or, like, adjusting his sock, like, just his shoe off, and I'm just, don't include him in these shots, you know, shoot around him, like...
Really not sure what Boomer is supposed to bring to the team, perfectly honest. There could have been like one moment in this movie where we showed what he brought necessarily to the trifecta.
Yeah, is he like an expert hacker? Is he a demolitions expert? Is he the master of disguise? You know, following like the A-Team formula, you gotta have the specialized roles.
Ridley is the leader, Trish Stratus is the muscle, and Boomer is the funny guy. Well, he's not the funny guy. Someone once told him he was the funny guy, and now he thinks he's the funny guy. So, you know.
Hey, he was nominated for a Canadian Comedy Award.
So clearly...
He is the funny guy.
Clearly, this humor is just going over our head.
Yeah, it was a shallow pool of nominees that year.
Okay, so the movie opens with them collecting a bounty. We don't see them drop the bounty off at the station, even though they keep saying we gotta go to the station. This guy just sort of disappears. After they collect the initial bounty, they get a call for a second bounty, but we can't go immediately to collect the second bounty. Oh no, wait, this is after it. There's so many bounties. There's like 3 bounties in a row, so it's kind of hard to keep track of them all. So, okay, sorry. So after they collect the first bounty, they get a call about a second bounty about a drug dealer named Peter something or other. Then they go to his house. Then they collect his bounty. You take over, because I just realized that, I don't care. I just realized I don't fucking care what the plot of this movie is.
But yes, they go to this guy's, Peter's house, and there's like a really lame shootout, and they find out that he has a BB gun.
Which will be important later. It's Chekhov's BB gun.
They detain him, they throw him in the back of the van, and before we can like drop him off at the bounty, we gotta drop Trish Stratus off at her other job, her moonlighting job, where she is the server at a strip club, which is this movie's excuse to get Trish Stratus into a skimpy schoolgirl outfit.
This is where we find out that Trish Stratus bounty hunting, but she's also serving at a bar at the lamest strip club. Everything in this movie, it's just, they could have shot that strip club so much more interesting, or just like give it some different lighting. We see like a dancer in this movie, and the obligatory tits of this movie, but it looked like they turned the lights on like you would do at the end of the night to get the people out of the strip club.
Last call, yeah.
Ugly lights to get out.
It didn't seem like a strip club to me. It seemed like a Legion Hall more than anything, you know? Because like this movie looked like it was shot in just like some small town in northern Ontario, and this isn't like the high-end strip club. This is sort of like the one kind of just on the outskirts of town, like kind of in the middle of nowhere.
This movie was shot in Toronto.
It didn't look like it.
No, it didn't look like it. No, they went to like one specific suburb of Toronto and like a strip mall. That was it. But it's here we find out through a seemingly throwaway line of dialogue that Trish Stratus has a daughter. And the entire time I'm watching this,
I completely missed that.
Did I just blow your mind?
I missed. She has a daughter?
Yeah.
Really?
So here's my point that I was building to earlier. It's only in...
There's a scene of Trish in like a skimpy schoolgirl outfit, and I wasn't paying attention? Holy fuck. That's how fucking stupid this movie is.
They say it, they only say it in 2 throwaway lines of dialogue, but I did write it down.
I know, Jules. But think about it. If this works out, think what this could mean for all of us. You could put money away for Sophia, and you wouldn't have to do this anymore.
She has a daughter named Sophia, and then like later on when they're talking about like the big bounty that they've just collected, there's another moment where they're talking about what they're gonna do with their share of the money, and she says, I'm gonna go on vacation with my daughter.
Oh, vacation with my daughter.
And that's it. Those are the only 2 mentions of the fact that she had a daughter. If this movie had opened, or if in like the first 10 minutes of this movie, there had been 30 seconds where we saw Trish Stratus interacting with a little girl, then we as an audience would have bought this is the protagonist of the movie. Because this is someone that clearly has something to lose. This is someone that we care just a little bit about now. Because you've shown us 60 seconds of her interacting with an innocent young child that we know that there are stakes, or the promise of stakes that bad people might find out that she has a daughter, but she never shows up. And it's like, there wasn't one fucking crew member who had a 5-year-old daughter that could have brought the little girl to the set one day and then filmed an hour with her playing a board game with Trish Stratus. Really? You're telling me that they couldn't have gotten that shot? That's all they needed, and then I would have cared.
This is why the film adage, show don't tell, really applies, because I didn't fucking know she had a daughter. But what that scene highlighted to me, not just like the daughter stuff, but was, at one point I wrote down on my notes, why did this movie get made? And then like because we gotta have like Trish Stratus in a schoolgirl outfit at one point. But when the movie detours towards that, and we see her get changed, and then she walks into the strip club, it cuts back to the 3 men in the van, and then it lays out all the exposition, and I'm like, what about seeing a bunch of strippers? What's going on here? Like, are we not doing that?
Yeah, if you blink, you miss it, but yeah, exactly. There was absolutely, there was no reason to have the brief interlude where Trish Stratus goes to the strip club. It seems like this is all taking place within like the confines of one evening. It's like the longest night. Like, no, cause it starts off in the evening and then the movie ends during the day. So this movie starts at around
like 10 p.m. or whatever.
and then they just seemingly do not sleep. They just continue to go. So Trish Stratus does her bounty hunter job at, let's say, either like 8 or 9 p.m. And then she does that. She collects 2 bounties in that time. And then she goes to her bartending gig at a strip club. So by that point, it must be at least close to midnight. And I'll buy that. Like some strip clubs are open all night.
Graveyard shift or whatever, yeah.
But then she leaves her bartending job to go collect the 3rd bounty. And it's like, there's no, why have the scene at all? Why have the interlude in the strip club? The obvious answer to that question is to fill the movie up with tits and ass. Not to be crude here, but it doesn't even do a good job of doing that. There's not like a moment where you're all like, yeah, naked women. It's just kind of like, yeah, there they are. They're over there.
Yeah, I think at one point I just texted you and I was, there's hardly going to be any nudity in this movie. I can feel it in my bones. So Peter, he tells Boomer and Ridley that don't give me up. I know like another bounty who's like worth like a lot more. I forget like the connection to him, but he was going to, he can rat out like a local mafia boss.
For you listening at home, pay particular close attention to what we're about to say, because this next part is charitably the only plot that this movie has. This next sentence we're about to say. So they pick up this drug dealer, and he's in the back of their car, and he's like, don't take me in for my drug dealing. I can let you in on an even bigger bounty, because I know this other criminal named, his name is Mario Antonio. That is the
really made up.
fakest fucking name I've ever heard, but apparently it's Mario Antonio, the Canadian-Italian mafia, which I'm sure exists. But anyway, so he says, this guy's got a $100,000 bounty on his head. I know where he is. He's at this happy ending massage parlor. He's hiding out in the back room. So they pick Trish Stratus up at the strip club, and then they head on over to the massage parlor. Boomer gets to do some hilarious improv.
Alright, here's the deal. This is what I want. I want 3 to 4 young, hot, non-English speaking women, Asian preferably if you got them. Now my girlfriend here, she gets a little nervous around people, so she's gonna sit there and watch while I wear a werewolf mask and masturbate. We cool?
Which actually elicited a bit of a chuckle out of me, I'm not gonna lie. Because he opens the door, throws open the door, and just lays out the craziest kink that he wants, or like the craziest kink that they used, because he did a lot of takes.
He did a lot of takes, found out in the outtakes.
But it was just like rapid fire, like here's what I want, and it was like pretty specific. I got a laugh out of it, I'm ashamed to admit.
The image of someone masturbating with the werewolf mask on, that's sure. Somebody finds that funny.
So they go to the back room, they find Mario
Antonio, Meatball.
Sabato Jr., whatever the fuck. And there's a brief fight scene, and then the plot marches on.
Okay, so, and there's a fight scene in the massage parlor. 2 things happen during that thing. So, like, Trish is chasing after Mario, and then this random guy who we have to assume was seconds ago getting his dick sucked, he hears all this,
He's unrelated to the mafia going on. He's just a patron.
He just hears this scuffle, opens the door, hey, what's going on? And Trish just fucking drop kicks him right in the chest. That was a moment that made me laugh because it was genuinely unexpected, and I was just wondering, what the fuck did that guy do?
And then another guy comes out, and he's like the actual bouncer of this place, and he starts kicking Boomer's ass, leaving Trish Stratus to deal with Mario in the lobby.
It's Boomer's comedy is already unfunny on its own, but when you realize that about half of his ad-libs are tired Asian stereotypes, we haven't even gotten to the worst one, but it pretty much, it starts in the massage parlor and it basically continues until the movie ends. So they picked up Mario, now he's in the back of the car. Now we get to sort of the moral quandary of the movie, because as soon as they pick Mario up, what is his name? Ridley gets a phone call from an unlisted number, and the big mob boss, who is one of the worst actors I've ever seen in my life. Holy shit.
He's pretty fucking bad.
It's really hard to describe why he was so bad. There are other bad actors. It's easy to describe what makes, Tommy Wiseau a bad actor. But this guy is he's so clearly barely remembering his lines. There is a scene later on where he is interrogating someone in his garage. He's got someone tied to a chair, and the eventual payoff is he's gonna grab a golf club and he's going to beat someone to death with a golf club. But, that scene goes on for what feels like 5 5 solid uninterrupted minutes.
I kind of wanted to rewatch that scene just so we could have... I wanted to time out how long that scene is. Like, maybe we'll do that. It shouldn't take longer than a minute. And it seems like it's the longest fucking scene in the movie.
But the reason that the scene takes so long, Jameson, is because this guy has a certain way of talking.
Cadence.
And when...
It's kind of like...
Yeah, I won't do that. I won't do that.
Yeah, please don't. It's... If I could describe it in, like, I would say that it's not a native English speaker, but doing a William Shatner-style Captain Kirk way of acting, but doing so as a New York tough guy kind of guy. So they're doing that kind of inflection in cadence with an accent while also being ESL themselves.
Let me see if I understand the situation.
These bounty hunters, they came out of nowhere and...
You got caught selling a couple of lousy dime bags to some kids in a mall. Then you jump bail, which I suppose I can understand. Because if I was stupid enough to get caught, I'd be stupid enough to jump bail too. And then, on top of it, you go and get caught by these bounty hunters. But no, you don't go back to lockup. In your infinite wisdom, you decide to tell them where my ex-associate is hiding.
I had to. They were gonna take me back.
So now, I have to go pay $1 million to these bounty hunters to get Mario back. Because if I don't, they're gonna take him straight to the cops. And that little piece of shit will rat me out.
Except he's clearly just a dude from Toronto.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't think he was foreign, right? Like, that was...
All I knew is that it wasn't sort of a Bronx-style accent.
Like, I'm not even sure where this movie is supposed to take place. Like, it might have been...
Well, I thought it took place somewhere up in, like, northern Canada.
Yeah, it might have been nice if they dropped more, like, Canadian shit in it, but then again, this movie's already nominated for a Canadian Comedy Award. We don't need more association.
But yes, so moving on, the mafia boss offers them $1 million to return Mario to him, because if the guy goes back into lockup, he's just going to go to trial, and then he's going to give up the mafia boss in like some court case thing. So he wants to pay them $1 million to have them deliver him to him, and this causes the moral divide amongst the team. Boomer doesn't see a problem with this. He's like, oh, I want to take the $1 million, and this guy's just like a mafia guy anyways. Like, who cares? He's a bad guy. But both Ridley and Trish Stratus, they're wrestling with the internal conflict of...
They're wrestling with... WrestleMania! Bringing it back, anyway.
They don't feel comfortable with turning this guy away for money, for a paycheck. What the fuck are they talking about?
They're struggling with the moral quandary because they know if they accept $1 million, it's basically like they're shooting the guy in the head to begin with. If we knew anything about these characters, maybe I might buy that as motivation.
It would also be a good motivation for, like, Ridley to say, like, if we turn this Mario guy back into lockup and he does go to try and testify, that's going to cripple the entire mob organization. So it'd be worthwhile to actually take this guy into prison instead of giving him to the mafia boss, because he can bring down this whole crime empire and, like, really save the community. But they don't. They wrestle with, like, oh, we don't want to give this guy because then, like, we'd be like us pulling the trigger ourselves. Even though all three of these bounty hunters are fucking trained killers.
And that's the thing, they're bounty hunters, they're not cops. The image we have of bounty hunters is already outside of the law, somewhat. They're working within this gray area where they can get away with shifty shit. It would have been a far more interesting movie, because the characters aren't likable to begin with, so it would have been a far more interesting movie if it was just a Guy Ritchie crime thriller where all of the characters are just shitty people. At the very least, that would have given it sort of like a cathartic sort of, no, I'm not supposed to be enjoying this, but I'm kind of like enjoying this sort of like feeling, you know? Like the best crime dramas do. I mean, the choices that these bounty hunters make are so needlessly confusing. My big question was, so they have Peter. Peter gives up Mario. It's all like, if you let me go, I'll tell you where this other guy is, and like they have, like there's like a bigger bounty on him than there's a bigger bounty on me, and so they don't drive Peter to the lockup. Again, we never go to the lockup, so they just keep Peter in the back of their van, and then they go to the massage parlor place, they get Mario, and then when they put Mario in the back of the van, they let Peter go. And they do it right next to Mario, too, so it's like they let him out, so Mario clearly saw Peter, so like he's dead anyway, and then the next scene we see the fucking mob boss whack him with a golf club, so like that character ended up dying anyway. But why not turn in Mario and Peter and collect
double the bounties?
Why do you need to be honorable if these people are criminals?
Mm-hmm. A bounty's a bounty to these people, or at least it should be.
They're all bad people. And you see, and like your moral objection about not collecting the $1 million and then being like a three-way millionaire, I guess not three-way millionaire, but like getting all of this money is that no, that wouldn't be ethical because we don't want this person to die, even though ostensibly they sent Peter off to his death. And they must have known that they sent Peter off to his death. And in point of fact, we'll get there eventually when we talk about the ending of the movie. But spoiler alert, they make a decision in regards to Mario that essentially while they didn't kill Mario themselves, they more or less sent Mario off to his death as well. So like, make up your mind, movie. Either these bounty hunters have ethics or they don't. Make a choice.
Yeah, and stick to it, please. So they go to the handoff of the mafia guys run by this dude named Francis. I don't know exactly how
handoffs work?
Well, no, I know how the handoff works. I don't think the screenwriter knew how handoffs works. But they go to Francis. They said, like, we have Mario. Okay, here's the $1 million. We're not going to take it. What? And then Boomer says, hey, guys, let's think about this. Then Mario gets away. And then Francis gets away without Mario.
Yeah, this is like this whole handoff.
And then Trish Stratus gets hurt in the movie. And then she's out for...
This whole handoff is exceptionally bungled, and it brings me back to what I was just saying. Francis, the Stone Cold Killer, comes with their $1 million, and then just as, like, literally as he's trying to hand Trish Stratus the money, then she starts going all like, well, wait, what are you gonna do with him? What happens when we have another bite? The time to ask those questions is over. You're at the handoff. There was a time to ask that, but that time is done now. Now, you need to take the money and give him to him because it doesn't make sense to question this anymore. Because the dude's here with the money.
Before we do this, I got a couple of questions. Let's clear some things out here. Fucking no.
Like Francis is just gonna put his gun away and just be all like, alright, I got time. Sure, why not?
Yeah, the mafia boss was like explicitly clear with like what you're fucking doing here.
So...
Trish Stratus gets hurt during the kerfuffle, and they gotta take her to the emergency room, which takes Trish Stratus out of the movie for like a solid 10 minutes.
They just take her ass to the hospital. Now, they do that so they can set up this moment later on where two other trained killers sneak in disguised as orderlies and put Trish Stratus into an ambulance, I guess, to kidnap her for leverage for the mob boss so that the two other male bounty hunters will hand over Mario. Wouldn't it have just made more sense, particularly knowing that you have Trish Stratus, the only name in this movie, as one of the three bounty hunters. If you want to eliminate one of the three bounty hunters from the story for a little bit and then have them get kidnapped for a bit, why not make it anyone other than Trish Stratus? Why not send Ridley to the hospital for a bit?
I was gonna say it would make the most sense to have it be him because he's the leader. What's the crew supposed to do without their leader, without like the moral center of their crew? So like, yes, he's important to the plot. He should be the bargaining chip, not the star.
Not to mention, out of the three of them, he's the worst fucking actor. So if you're going to eliminate, not that Trish Stratus is fucking Laura Linney or anything like that, but
she's the star.
She's more entertaining to watch than fucking Frank J. Zupanchik. So...
Gesundheit.
But he ostensibly becomes the main hero of this movie for 10 minutes until Trish Stratus comes back.
Did Trish just not like working in the cold? Was she shooting another movie at the time?
She was shooting we know for a fact that she only ever did one other movie, so yeah, maybe they flew her in because they only had Danny Glover for a couple of days, so they needed to get Trish back on that set. Anyway, what the fuck happens next? Oh, God.
Do we want to talk about the diner scene, or do we want to skip ahead to like the Mexican standoff?
Christ, we're already at like 40 minutes. Like, I do want to talk about, so this movie is so short, and yet there are multiple scenes that just felt so unnecessary. We don't find out that Trish Stratus has a daughter, but we do have an extended sequence where Francis sneaks into a restaurant and then takes takes out a bullet in a bathroom when he's calling the mob boss on the phone. Now, when he went through the kitchen, because, like, you look...
It's like Goodfellas. Like, he's going through the entire restaurant to get to this downstairs washroom.
I've worked in the food service industry for going on close to 2 decades. I cannot tell you how disappointed I am that not once did I ever have a wounded mafioso just sneak in through the back door and just walk through the kitchen while I was trying to do prep. I waited for it. I waited for that to happen. I waited for like 2 people to come in and start beating each other with the pots and the pans and everything. Never happened once. Don't go into food industry, people. It's full of lies. It's a profession built on lies. Now, because when I saw him go through the back kitchen door, my first thought is that, oh, this is a safe house / restaurant that the mob boss owns, because Italian mob boss movies have me believe that that's sort of tied to the restaurant industry, because that's what they do. They have those as fronts. And I thought he was coming into the restaurant to meet with the mob boss. The mob boss we only ever see at his house, which there were so many establishing shots of that house, because it was a really interesting mansion. I think the director just figured out, like, we need to get as many shots of this house as possible.
That's a fucking nice looking house. Let's get a lot of it.
Nice fucking house we got right there, yeah. But then, yeah, no, it's just a random fucking restaurant that this wounded dude walks into, and we have to have this scene where he goes down into the basement bathroom where there is a poor unfortunate homeless man just like sitting in a corner. Again, this might have been a moment for some dark comedy, but no, the homeless dude doesn't really say anything interesting or memorable, and then Francis keeps interrupting his call to the mob boss, so Francis turns around and shoots the guy in the head.
You shut up.
Bleeding all over my snake. What's going on, Francis?
Hold on a second, Howard. Sorry about that, boss.
So this wasn't a mob-controlled restaurant at all where Francis could come in and do his thing and get, like, loaded up John Wick style. No. This is just a random fucking gastropub where this wounded fucking dude broke into the back door and then shot someone in the bathroom. Why did he shoot him in the head? If you're conspicuous much, grab a knife and knife the homeless guy. I mean, don't kill the homeless guy at all, but, like, you're supposed to be a fucking trained killer.
I mean, did he get shot in the head, though? Because I saw the squib from the back of the guy's head, but I didn't see a fucking entry wound from the gunshot, so maybe he's still alive, and he just, like, threw his head back against a tomato or something.
The back of my toolkit's where I keep all my ketchup packets. So Francis has failed the mob boss, so he calls in...
Oh, yes, just, like, through some downtime where they need to figure out a plan, Boomer and Ridley go to, like, this all-night diner, and the 2 assassins, Deacon and Ruby, track them down, and they do like a little recon mission where Ruby...
My favorite character. Best character in the movie.
She walks through the diner. Boomer and Ridley don't know who Deacon and Ruby are, so like they have no reason to be suspicious of just like this cop that's coming in after hours. It's actually really fucking clever of them. She does a little recon where she goes to the bathroom and then radios her partner saying, okay, what's his face? Mario isn't with them, so he must be in the van, which allows her partner, to go and investigate the van. It would almost be flawless if she hadn't sat right down next to them and completely given herself away by being really fucking creepy.
Fucking suspicious, because she comes in a full cop outfit, walks around the diner, and then she sits down right next to them and like stares at them for an uninterrupted full minute of silence where she's just staring them down. No one says anything. Again, that was one of the few moments that actually made me laugh.
The woman behind the counter like asked like, hey, can I get you anything? And like, like no eye contact, no nothing. And then the captain's like, okay, well, I'll see you later. And then the silence lingers for a freakishly long time.
Evening, officer. Can I get your coffee? Okay. I'll be over there if you need me.
Before Boomers just says...
Okay, I gotta take a piss.
So Ridley has an uninteresting fight with the male assassin outside next to the van, and Boomer has what we think is going to be an interesting fight for a little bit in the bathroom with the female assassin.
I mean, like, as I was watching this movie, I thought, like, this is my favorite fight scene in the movie so far, because they're juggling between, like, the one gun that's between the 2 of them and the keys to the van, because Boomer's the one who had the keys on him. So, like, there's moments where, like, they're disarming each other with the gun, and then, like, they're catching the key midair, and they're like juggling between the two weapons, and they're flipping over each other. And it's actually really well shot, and you can tell the actors spent a lot of time rehearsing the choreography for this. It was my favorite fucking fight scene in the movie, right up until the final line, where Boomer drops another delicious, hilarious, racial tinged joke at this Asian woman's expense.
What the fuck? Everybody else, Asians can't drive.
Yeah, that was fun. That's what got him the nomination. That, you know, it's just, he's the Dane Cook of Canada. He's always pushing those buttons. He's always taking it right to the edge, you know, trying to be as, hot topic as possible. Yeah, no, it's bullshit. It's also...
Do you think that cost him the award?
It's also bullshit. I mean, like, it's bullshit the way that scene ends with his line. It's also bullshit how he kind of gets the upper hand, because she's beating the shit out of him, but he eventually gets the upper hand because she breaks a mirror, and he grabs a shard of the mirror, and then he stabs her in the foot. And that's how he manages to get the upper hand somehow. This might be like minor quibble, but if you're an assassin, and you, at the very least, aren't wearing steel-toed shoes, you're a bad assassin. I'm just saying, because, like...
Also, she's disguised as a cop. Cops wear steel-toed boots.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, I know, but, like, I have to imagine, like, a piece of a mirror doesn't have the same piercing strength as a knife would, or, like, something made out of steel. You can certainly, like, I don't know, like, we might have to, like, Mythbusters this one, but, like, I'm fairly certain if you took a piece of mirror...
Kaz, go right ahead. I am not getting stabbed in the foot.
Come on, man, we need that content. We need that supplemental YouTube content.
Yeah, like, comment, and subscribe, people.
You've already hurt your foot.
We get 100 of them, we'll stab someone in the foot.
You already have the leg brace.
I shouldn't say that. I've had one foot injury already this year. I'm good.
Now you have the leg brace, so it's fine. Yeah, it's good. We'll just put that on. It'll be alright.
Yeah, great. So they get what do they do? They fucking kidnap Trish Stratus from the hospital eventually. And,
boring car chase and a boring... I mean, like, the two, Trish and the assassin woman, have a fight in the back of a moving ambulance. You would think that would have to be pretty hard to fuck that up, to not make that at least kind of interesting to watch. Somehow they managed to find a way to make that boring as fuck. It's both a car chase and a fight in the back of a moving vehicle, and it's the least interesting fucking thing I've seen.
Yeah, one dressed as a sexy nurse and the other in like a short hospital gown, and it's not holding my interest. You're doing a bad job here, movie.
And that's a good point. I actually didn't even think about that. So when Trish gets hit by... They say in the movie she got hit by a car. I must have looked away for half a second because it looked like she just ran straight into a wall. But either way, when she went into the hospital, she was wearing the schoolgirl outfit. But when she gets loaded into the ambulance, she's wearing the hospital gown. But then for the end of the movie, with like the big like standoff, she's back in the schoolgirl outfit. So they made the conscious decision to say, here, put this back on. Even though her clothing is complete. It's better for them if she continues to wear the hospital gown, because she can't hide anything that way. She can't hide weapons on her to help her get the advantage in the situation. But no, they gotta get her back in that schoolgirl outfit, because we shot the opening of this movie first, and then we realized we fucked ourselves, so we need to get her back in that outfit.
God damn, alright Trish, you gotta put the schoolgirl outfit back on.
I forgot to mention, Trish Stratus also produced this movie. Really? Yeah, so whatever, like, degrading shit they make her do, she signed off on. So clearly she's cool. She'll do whatever it takes to make that money, to make that award-winning film.
Cool. I mean, like, she's a good-looking lady, and she's, like, good at what she does, and she's good in fights. She should be proud and, like, wear whatever the hell she wants.
She should be producing...
She's got no delusions about what she does.
She should be producing her own action movies, but, like, she needs to be working with better fucking filmmaking teams.
Not her fucking friends growing up in Canada. So yeah, they go to this like abandoned warehouse where they have like the big standoff between the mafia boss, Mario, the bounty hunters, Deacon, Ruby. Francis shows up at one point. Everybody fucking like get in here. We all gotta be in this movie.
Everyone who's not dead yet shows up. Now this is where the suspicions that this movie may have been lying about its runtime started to sneak in, because when they got to the warehouse, you immediately recognize, oh, this is where the movie opened. This is where she had the gun pointed at her head, and all of the characters are here. So I took a look at the time. There was still half an hour left at that point. And I'm saying to myself, this appears to be the ending of the movie. So is the last half hour of this movie just going to take place in this one location? It does. The next 20 minutes of the movie will take place in this location.
But the movie's not over yet.
So we get to the Mexican standoff. Sidebar here. Is Mexican standoff one of those things that it's not PC to say anymore?
I have no idea.
No, because it's not like, it's describing a situation where at the very least 3 people are pointing guns at each other. I don't know if that's racist. I also don't know what else you would call it. You call it a 3-way?
That's a different thing.
Like, comment, and subscribe what we should rename Mexican standoff as. They drive up, and 2 other bounty hunters get Mario out of the van, and they're like, okay, we have like a plan to like get Trish back without handing you over so you don't die. And then they give him a gun, and they say, here, this is the best we can do. As soon as they do this, all like, it's the BB gun. It's the BB gun from earlier. It's the BB gun from earlier, and then there eventually will be a reveal that Mario is going to betray them, because we saw him betray them in the opening, like, 2 minutes of the thing. He's pointing a gun at people, and it is the biggest surprise. Well, I mean, like, obviously, like, when it happens, the movie expects us to be like, oh, you clever-ass movie. Oh, I saw you set that up earlier. And it's like, we know it's the BB gun. You don't even need to say it's because we're not because we've all watched a movie before. We know it's not the fucking thing. But the movie, it introduces that, and then 15 minutes later, we get the payoff for that. But what happens next?
So, like, Trish Stratus and Ruby have a fight scene in, like, I don't know, like some other room in the warehouse.
So the deal goes wrong. Money is in exchange. Everyone essentially scatters.
Everybody partners up for a fight scene.
The mob boss runs after Mario, and then Ridley runs after the 2 of them, and then Boomer and uninteresting other male killer, whose name I can't even fucking remember right now, they have...
Deacon.
Good for him. They have, like, an awesome, terrible fight. Okay.
An awesome, terrible fight is a good way to describe it.
One of my biggest peeves when it comes to action movies is when they obviously haven't choreographed the action. So the cinematographer shoots the action with lots of close-ups and with lots of shaky cam and lots of fast edits. It's that bullshit way of editing action scenes that, like, the Bourne Identity movies did. I don't know why everyone had such a hard-on for those movies. I've never enjoyed them because I don't like... You're watching it, it's all like, and you just having, like, it looks like the cameraman's having a seizure.
Yeah, it's too frantic to follow, and, like, it's meant to show that, or invoke that, this fight is chaotic, and, like, it's so fast that you can't even see them land any of the blows. But you're right, it's a bullshit way, and, like, people should have been ashamed of themselves for that style.
This movie is shot the way I prefer action scenes to be shot. The camera is far enough away that I can clearly see both of the people fighting. It's framed in such a way that I can see all of the action. The only problem is the fight choreography in this movie is fucking asinine. So if anything, this movie needed to have that choppy, fucked up editing, because weirdly enough, I would have accepted it more in a film like this.
Yeah, you wouldn't notice the flaws in it.
This movie shows you everything, but it really shouldn't have. It needed to obscure the fact that they didn't know what the fuck they were doing.
You know what irritated me about those fight scenes?
Oh, please tell me.
The fight scenes between Trish Stratus and Ruby happens, like, in tandem with Boomer and Deacon having their fight scene in another room, and it keeps cutting back and forth between them. That's, like, pretty standard fare for, like, most action movies. But what a lot of action movies keep consistent between those is have the same music playing between those 2 scenes. Now, the girl fight is underscored by, like, just, like, the shittiest punk song, like, I've heard in a while.
With lyrics akin to something old like, I'm a lady, I'm a badass lady, or something like that.
It's just a really irritating song, and, like, I didn't like it at all, and, like, I was just like anything else. But then when it cuts to the dudes fight, it cuts to, like, you know, like, heavy drums and just all instrumental, and then it cuts back to the woman fight where it's the same song, and then back to the instrumental stuff. Pick one of those songs. Just either one. Even though I hate that lyrical song, just, if you keep it consistent, I wouldn't notice how jarring it was to have it completely different scene to scene.
You know, it's not a bad idea in theory. The problem is that they just didn't have competent writing or character development behind it. I can imagine a different version of this movie where you have the two different fight scenes going on and they're edited together exactly the same way. If they had played up the fact that Boomer was the comic relief of the movie, if they gave him something funny to do, if they made like a reoccurring bit that every time he tries to get into a fight, it doesn't work terribly well. If they made him...
Or he has kind of like, he wins fights by dumb luck, or something like that.
You know what they should have done is they should have done the Shanghai Noon thing, where you have Trish Stratus fighting the female cop assassin, and it's badass, and there's actual like wrestling moves in there, and Trish Stratus, because Trish Stratus is the one who can fight and you know what we're doing, and they're having like a bare knuckle brawl where like blood is flying and stuff, and the music is all like da 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 da, and then it cuts to Boomer having his fight, but it's the more comical of the fight because he doesn't quite know what he's doing. So it's like you have like the different styles of music. You have like da 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 da, bada 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 bada. I could see a version of that working.
But the movie wants us to believe that they're both really good fighters. Or these are both really good fight scenes happening at the same time. So that wouldn't have worked.
But they both win their respective fights in like the lamest climaxes. For being my favorite character, being one of the more like badass characters in the movie, Ruby, the female assassin, goes down like fucking nothing. I almost said goes down like a bitch, but you can't really say that when you're talking about a woman. You can only really say like when Bane gets shot by Catwoman at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, it feels more natural to say like, man, Bane went down like a bitch. But when it's an actual woman, you kind of all like, I don't really feel like saying that. Even though, if we're being honest...
Yeah, way to be a hero, Kaz.
She went down like a bitch. I just want to say. But it's okay, because we established up front that we're a feminist podcast, so it's alright, we'll be forgiven.
Could have just said, like, went out like a punk. That's what I do.
And then, with all the other bad guys dead, the inevitable thing happens where Mario gets the gun on the mob boss. Turns out it's Blanks, so he gets shot, Francis gets shot, and the mob boss gets shot, and then the three bounty hunters they've left a trail of bodies in their wake.
Yeah, they make off with $1 million.
And then the movie abruptly ends.
So abruptly.
So any qualms they had about moral quandaries, about blood on their hands and like needless death that they want to try and avoid, they clearly just threw that shit out the window because they have committed multiple crimes and now have a bag full of money that legally is not theirs. So they are criminals. They are criminals. They end this movie as criminals.
And not only that, whoever listed the first bounty, they're probably going to wonder what the fuck happened, you know?
That's a really good question. Who's sending them all these bounties? We don't know. We never found out.
I mean, like, okay, like, it was taking care of itself, right? But like, are they still gonna get the money from that person? Is that person expecting them to be alive? Like, maybe Mario had information on, was gonna inform on other people, you know?
There's like one scene at the very, very end of all the credits where we find like their boss who's been sending them all of their bounty missions the entire time. He's the one that's been babysitting Trish Stratus' daughter this entire time.
Or like
they're just having a tea party.
He's like, just like the police captain or whatever, like, he's at his desk and he's like, you know, sipping his coffee, checking his watch, and like, I should have heard from those bounty hunters we outsourced this to a while ago.
I don't know what happened to them. And yeah, so, and then this movie, to tie it into another movie that we did on WrestleMania this year, this movie pulls a Chasing Molly on us, where it just ends. It just abruptly ends. And then that movie gave us 10 minutes of outtakes and like scenes that weren't in the movie. And this movie does that as well too. The only difference is that movie was a fucking comedy, so it makes sense to have outtakes during the credits. This just keeps fucking going.
A lot of them are just, someone missed their mark in a fight scene. Some of them are like alternate takes of Boomer walking into the massage parlor, like doing his spiel.
I want about half a dozen chicks. I don't give a shit if they're Asian, black, foreign, just as long as they don't speak English. I want to get an 8-ball with about 3 shots of whiskey. 3 shots of whiskey is key because I'm going to have one, she's going to have 2. And when we're all buzzed up, I'm going to get a steaming erection, take a Viagra, and then hang hockey equipment off my dick. And while I do it, you're going to take them off and put them on, and then I'm going to fuck you in the ass because that's exactly what I like. I like fucking hockey players in the ass. She likes to watch and diddle herself. High five, bitch.
It's the longest one. Some of them are kind of funny, but I know you gotta pick just one. But, like, they're not golden. If anything, like, this is probably what they stitched together as, like, for your consideration for his Canadian Comedy Award.
You're 100% right. You might have meant that as a joke. I guarantee you, just like the B-reel footage at the ass end of this movie is what got that guy a Canadian Comedy Award nomination. And it didn't even make it in...
Whichever one of these takes you like the best, you're gonna give the award to.
Yeah, at the actual ceremony, when they're showing clips from the movie, that's what it was. They're showing that and the fucking credits are going down the right hand of the screen. Fuck. God, okay.
Alright, is there anything else we want to talk about? There's one line.
What was the funny line that we both liked?
My favorite line came from Ridley when they're at their low point. Trish Stratus just got kidnapped and Boomer's saying like, oh, I can't believe let the two assassins get away. Like, I really let us down. And Ridley says, no, it's my fault. I'm the oldest. I should have known better.
It's not your fault. Yes, it is. It's all my fault. I'm the oldest. I should have known better.
That's what it was. That was my favorite line too. I'm the oldest.
I'm the oldest. I should know better.
As if they're a family or something.
That's what my fucking parents used to say to me when I set a bad example to my younger sisters. Like, come on.
I did, this was a very small moment earlier, but I did, this was an example of clear Boomer improv that should have made the B-reel, but somehow made its way into the movie. It's just a very throwaway line, but it made me laugh. They're in the car and I think they have Mario in the back and they're driving and they're talking about like, who's having breakfast? Boomer's got breakfast today. I'm gonna buy breakfast for everyone. And then they're talking about what they're gonna have and Trish is all like, Mario, you should come with us. We're all gonna go get pancakes. And then Boomer says, yeah, when they put maple syrup on them, I love that. And it's like, what the fuck else would you put on pancakes? Like, that's the funniest line you can fucking think of. I love it when they put syrup on pancake. Oh, man. It's all like, hey, did you go for a run today? I'm gonna go for a run today. Man, I love it when I put shoes on to go run. That's my favorite part, is putting on the shoes.
I mean, there's other types of syrup. There's blueberry syrup, raspberry syrup, whatever.
Okay.
I know this is Canada, so it ought to be maple syrup.
Maybe you're right. Maybe this diner is renowned for its syrup selection. It could
be an IHOP. You don't know. But your larger point is that as a comedy, this is a really shitty comedy. Then, like, yes, you're right. Point taken.
I'm sure there's something in my notes here that when I wrote it down, I wanted to say. I don't care anymore. I don't really give a shit. Do you have anything? I just want this to be over.
The audio mixing was atrocious in this movie. You couldn't hear the dialogue half the time because, like, music was too loud or, like, people were mumbling their lines and, like, you could pick up the wind or whatever in the microphones.
Oh, yeah. That's something that we didn't talk about. The sound mixing in this movie is
it's awful.
It's not quite as bad as Last Hour, that DMX movie we watched, where the microphone is obviously too hot or too close to someone's face, so it's all distorted. It has the opposite problem. We can't fucking hear what anyone says. There's one moment near the end where Trish Stratus and the Asian woman are having a fight, and she says something to Trish Stratus, and we see the subtitles of what it is, and then Trish Stratus says something along the lines of, sorry, my Cantonese is a little rusty. But that's the thing, is we don't know what she's saying because the music is so loud, and there are so many moments in this where characters are saying something, but either the sound effects or the music is drowning out what they're supposed to say. So, like, you asked me, you texted me, what did she just say? And I'm just all like, I don't know, everyone needs subtitles.
The one time in the movie where she speaks in English, you can't fucking hear it. Yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta fucking say.
I'm done.
Kaz, would you recommend bail enforcers / bounty hunters?
No, there's no follow up to that. No.
No, I hated this movie. God damn, this movie sucks.
Did you not feel like it would, like before we went? It's called Bail Enforcers, for fuck's sakes. Did you not see the poster? Look, we knew what we were getting into, man.
I kind of had an eye thinking that this is going to be probably as bad as Wrong Side of Town, because it looks like very much in that vein. I was more or less worried that, like, it would just be boring and we wouldn't have anything.
I was worried it would be boring too.
So, it's not...
But it wasn't. I'll give it that. I wasn't bored.
No, like, it's certainly not boring. There's certainly stuff, though, you could fill up the runtime of a podcast discussing, but...
What would you, if you had a gun to your head, if you were in a Mexican standoff and a mob boss was telling you in a very specific cadence and way of talking, but if you had a gun to your head, what...
Kaz, just shoot me now, because I can't stand like this. The way that you're asking this.
What would you watch again, this or Wrong Side of Town? What's worse?
Ooh, what's worse? Ooh, that's a good question.
I'm just gonna say, I think Wrong Side of Town had a little more personality than this movie did. Wrong Side of Town had that amazing fucking opening credits thing where they were trying to do, like, James Bond with, like, Adobe Flash. That, like, this movie doesn't come remotely close to anything that clever.
No, the credits where they do that, those credits are at least better than Wrong Side of Town. So, like, I'll give the edge to Wrong Side of Town for being a worse movie, but it's also a funnier bad movie. So, I don't know. I abstain from voting, I guess.
Just goes to prove my point, men are better at everything. Alright, moving on. Jameson, do you have anything to plug?
Holy fuck. Let's see.
Feminist podcast. Sorry.
Well, let's see. Like for the last couple of weeks, I've just been wrapping up like a bunch of shows that I haven't finished. So like I finally got around to watching the last season of like Samurai Jack, which I had never finished and I loved back in the day. Yeah, I finished that. I finished Parks and Rec, New Girl, Californication.
You finished Parks and Rec just in time to watch the Zoom reunion.
Exactly, yeah, which was kind of wholesome and cute. A lot of callbacks to the early stuff, but that's kind of what I expected. Oh, and I guess like one thing, this is a kind of an odd plug, but I've also taken the time to sort of like, make some new Spotify playlists, and I really got into like my classic rock playlist. Listeners, check out the music of Blue Oyster Cult and Prism, because I think they're really underappreciated in terms of classic rock fandom.
Little known recording artists, Blue Oyster Cult and Prism.
Dancing in the Ruins is a fucking awesome song.
I'll be perfectly honest, I've never even heard of Prism. So what's Prism's big song?
They're a Vancouver-based band.
Oh, nice.
Armageddon's a good one. Take Me to the Captain with a K. That's a very good one.
I have two plugs. I am going to be on Hannah Snyder's podcast, Keeping It Straight with Georgia.
I'm a guest on that show alongside Rebecca Shalon.
We recorded that the other day. We ended up talking for well over 3 hours. And last I talked to Hannah, she said that she was probably going to actually split it up into 2 different podcasts. And because we go off on a tangent for a considerable amount of time, we probably go off on about an hour-long tangent about the concept, very weighty subjects, like the Me Too movement and racism, and I continually put my foot in my mouth trying to join a conversation about racism in the film and TV industry as a white man. So if you want to listen to me continually try to sound far more intelligent than I actually am, tune into that. You can listen to that on Spotify, I think Apple Podcasts as well. That should be out soon. You are on an episode of that podcast as well, so...
I was, yeah. Hannah Snyder's my friend. I was on her COVID special, like last month, I believe it was. Yeah, I'd like to go back on the podcast because I'd like to talk like in depth about, the creative arts and not heavy political stuff. Because like even though I can...
Well, that's kind of what we did too. We talked about theater in Vancouver and the film industry as well. And then we just sort of ended up on the more serious subjects. And I think by the end of it, she decided I can't actually cut any of this because a lot of this is really... We go to some interesting spots. So, have a listen to that and then listen to Jameson's version as well. And then just hold off because we're going to get Hannah on this podcast eventually. One of these days. We've already discussed that.
Yeah, and I really want to hear it because it's 3 people I know who I've never met before, and I want to know if you guys talk about me or not.
Also, in addition to that, I am doing improv with Alchemy Theater. We are streaming it live over Twitch. It is called Tales from the Lost Galaxy. It is a long-form sci-fi comedy improv about a group of people who are on a ship that is stranded in space, and the variety of wacky situations that happens to them. We're going to do that bi-weekly every Sunday, and then we'll do the stream live over Twitch, and you can find that if you go to Alchemy Theater, their Facebook page. And on Sunday around 7 p.m., there will be a link to the Twitch stream that you can watch the show live. And if you missed that episode, the following Sunday, we will release the episode in podcast form, and then you can catch the episodes that way. So those are the 2 things that I'm doing. I've had a very busy week. I've been doing lots of recordings for other people. So yeah,
important to stay busy. Yeah,
I've been a busy boy. And with that seems to be a wrap yet again on WrestleMania. How do you think we did?
Can I ask you to do one thing?
Oh yeah,
give like a shout out to porn actors because let's complete that 3-part rant of yours because you did a nice little shout out to the porn actors and how difficult it is to bring to the mainstream. On our previous 2 WrestleMania episodes, it would feel incomplete to not get a 3rd one.
Oh, sure.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to. I gotta put you on the spot.
Treat porn stars like people. Damn it. There we go. I'm mad. I'm mad about this. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Join us for the next episode when maybe we'll have guests.
That's exciting.
We're looking into it. We've figured out how this whole Zoom thing works. It seems easy enough that we can add in like a third person. We just gotta find someone with their own microphone. But, yeah, that might happen. And if it doesn't happen, I might edit this part out of the podcast. So, until then, you stay frosty, Deputy Dogs. Jameson, give me that catchphrase.
What, the You Stay Frosty Deputy Dogs?
No, that's my catchphrase. Give us your catchphrase that everyone associates with you and waits until the end of the podcast to listen to.
Don't fake the funk on a nasty dunk.
Not bad. I wasn't expecting much, and I'm not gonna lie. You delivered.
Here's a wrestling specific one. Book it, Vince. Fuck, I don't know, man. I don't like outros.
Okay. Show over! Boom!
I would much like us to just peter out. Alright, I'm gonna stop recording.
I wear a werewolf mask and masturbate.